Greetings, this is Tat Amaru, and I'm in the Afro-Asiatic lab for another Def Terms, okay? It's been a minute since I got a chance to really just do my thing. I've been running around here and there, so I'm happy about this. Well, it's getting cloudy now, but it's a pretty sunny day on Saturday. Okay, today's Def Term is J.S.P.E.X. J.S.P.E.X. And I call it J.S.P.E.X. And this is a term coming from the upcoming book, 21st Century Japan Decoded. Once again, the title, 21st Century Japan Decoded. Okay. And actually, this is J.S.P.E.X. This edition of J.S.P.E.X. is actually part 2 of Eigo-Hoes. And I want to shout out the people that got at me and told me that I didn't properly define J.S.P.E.X. So Eigo-Hoe has 2 sides to it. You have the literal side and the figurative side. So I went in on the literal side, which is, in a nutshell, some Japanese people who adopt Western culture and especially speaking English, and they feel as though they have to do that or they're obligated to do that whenever they're in the presence of Westerners. And it's, you know, on the literal side of the game, there's a lot of women who, again, it's called Eigo-Hoe for a reason. And, you know, they're out there, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to talk too much about that. Please check that video out for more details. Today, we're going to go in on the figurative side. Okay, so these people are not necessarily sexually promiscuous. And in fact, I would say usually they're not. It's more on a professional tip. Okay. Anything else before we jump in? Oh, I wanted to say, again, I apologize for not going in on J.S.P.E.X. in the first video. It's a long story. And speaking of apologies, last week, Sterling and I did a Real Talk forum on the importance of apologies. And this also is an aspect that's dealt with in 21st Century Japan Decoded, because it's part of what I've coined the Yamato Code. And that's kind of the script that all Japanese people are required to follow in order to be Japanese, okay? And it includes saving face, maintaining face, and many other aspects. Please check out the book, okay? Okay, so let's go in. J.S.P.E.X. So what is a J.S.P.E.X.? The figurative side of the game. Okay, I'm going to share my screen from the manuscript. How do I do this again? Oh, yeah. From the manuscript, again, entitled 21st Century Japan Decoded. All right. Okay, hopefully you can see it. Okay, so you can see on the top, it says J.S.P.E.X., which I pronounce J.S.P.E.X., and it means Japanese self-proclaimed English experts. You know, I just do a play on the X here, you know, just so that it'll flow, and it can be an acronym. Okay, so what are these Japanese self-proclaimed English experts? J.S.P.E.X. are Western-educated, figurative Eigo-Hoes. In extreme cases, these Japanese come off as overly pompous. Not always, it just depends on, you know, again, that's a personality difference between each person. But speaking of the overly pompous ones, they are so proud of their English speaking ability, they aggressively seek opportunities to communicate with foreigners. If you happen to encounter a J.S.P.E.X. at a train station, in a store, or any public area where people congregate, and I'm talking about somebody you don't even know, okay, or someone you know, okay, and feel she is speaking inordinately loud, you are probably not imagining it. And you're also not crazy. It took me some time to realize that many J.S.P.E.X., especially older men, like to showcase their English skills to Japanese who happen to be in the vicinity. This is because people who can speak English fluently get props in the society. It is seen as cool, okay? And let me just read a little bit more. For this reason, please be aware that while in Japan, on the spur of a moment, you may unwittingly be selected to take part in one of these live performances. Since the J.S.P.E.X is starring in these productions, you, just like Black people always do, get slotted into the sidekick supporting role, okay? Whenever this occurs, you will notice the tone used by the man or woman resembles the demeanor of an actor on Broadway. Therefore, it seems they are speaking more at you than to you, okay? And also this is because they're also speaking to the people. They're again, like just like a Broadway actor, they're speaking to be heard. They're speaking to be noticed. It's a performance. Okay, now, case by case. If you're at a party, in a social gathering, you're new, you want to communicate to people, this might be the road to go. Again, and I think I can speak for Sterling on this too. When we come on here, we're not coming on here, especially I'm not coming on here as a scholar. I'm Dr. Taquan, da, 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 da. No, I'm staying in my lane and I'm telling you things that I've experienced, and I'm trying to put it, trying to document other experts. So those are the experts, the people I talk about are the experts. Okay, yes, I do my own research, but I don't come before you as a researcher. I come before you as a writer. I come before you as someone who's lived life. Okay. So I just want to make sure I get that clear. But yeah, in these cases, these people, they're trying to project their voice. Okay. They want to make a spectacle. And Sterling and I talked about it too. Whenever this happens, because speaking English or doing anything outside of the Japanese culture is off code, okay, for a Japanese person to do. You I shouldn't say you, people who are deemed as foreigners, they are already Japanese think they're off code, right? Sometimes it's good. It results in what I call a gaijin pass. I talk about that in the book. But in some cases, you don't want to do that. You're not in the mood. You're on your way to work. You're trying to get things done. You're in your own mind, and you get this unsolicited, free English lesson, so to speak. And if you don't speak to the person, if you don't acknowledge them, then it becomes an off-code situation. And this is important, the Japanese person is the only one who's off code, okay? The moment you acknowledge and or speak to them, especially in English, now it becomes both of you. The spectacle becomes both of you, and Japanese who happen to be in the vicinity will, oh, okay, it's a foreigner involved, so yeah, it's okay now. Now it's according to the code, it becomes a form of entertainment if they're so interested. But if you don't say anything, if you don't acknowledge them, if you just do what regular Japanese people do, what a Japanese person would do in a similar situation, which is to maybe act dumbfounded, like, why, do I know you? Kind of the same way you would be in your home country if someone just suddenly started talking to you, like not asking you, greeting you and asking you for directions, but I mean, just going in on a conversation, you know what I mean? Like, and with a real loud voice, you're like, what's wrong with you? Like, again, case by case, situation by situation. And we're not trying to say you should copy what we're doing. We're trying to show you or define a situation, show you what we did, or in this case, what I do or have done. And then you draw your own conclusions from that and adopt that to your lifestyle, to your situation, or to the situation you happen to be facing at that time. Okay. As an example of a J.S.P.E.X, I can, when I really learned about it was back in the early 2000s, I was a MC in a group called Afro-Asiatic. I lived in Hamamatsu at the time. We enjoyed pretty good success. We started touring the main island of Honshu. We were in the newspaper, on TV, all that kind of good stuff. And we had a Japanese manager. Okay. And I think he had divorced. He was married to an American woman. He had divorced her, but he had a son who actually became our DJ at a certain point. But he was grown. He grew up just about totally. He's like my opposite. He grew up mostly in Japan, where I grew up mostly outside of Japan. Okay. But I remember his father, who was our manager, he could speak pretty fluent. I would say fluent English. His accent was a little bit off, but he was totally acclimated. And I had heard, but I wasn't familiar with his father also. Okay, they owned an English school. They owned an English school. And it was his father or his grandfather who established it, but it was established way back in the day, is what I'm trying to say. When, even like before, it wasn't this craze, this Americanism craze that was going on. Now, I didn't know I'm not thinking about any of this. This guy, he volunteered to be our manager. He did a good job. He got us a lot of gigs, got us meet the mayor, and we had a press conference and all that good stuff, and put a lot of, not a lot, but we didn't make a lot of money, but we made significant money for doing something we would have done for free. And I'm totally appreciative of that. If I ever see this, see him right now, I have nothing but respect for the man. But I remember on a humbug, just out of the blue, I was doing something, but it was a convenience store nearest my apartment, and I saw a black dude. So me being on that code, whenever I see black people, I always, especially Hamamatsu, it's a little town. This is not near the station near the train station. So I'm like, this guy, he must live here, And he did. He lived not too close. He was driving, and he stopped, and he was teaching some kind of English lesson or something. But I walked up, introduced myself, and he had been living there at the time. He'd already been living in Japan for like close to 20 years. And I told him we were having a show, and I gave him the flyer or whatever. And he went on, and when he found out who our manager was, and I'm purposely not saying his name, he was like, oh, because up to that point, he was like, yeah, I'm going to come and support. And then he found that this guy was involved, and he was like frowning up. And so, me being the inquiring mind that I am, I wanted to know why. To me, our manager, he had been good people to me, what I'm saying, up to now. I don't know his personal life. So this guy, he goes on, and I can't think, I don't remember his name. The book was online. He gave me the link online. I checked it out. And, okay, let me not critique on a writer's level. But he went in and was talking about how our manager's father had exploited him. I don't even remember the details. Like I said, it's unsubstantiated, it's alleged. But the fact that this guy had went and took the time to write a book about this speaks, has said something. So he was a little sketchy. He was a little dusty. So I took it, grain of salt type thing. But when I got that day, George, what's his name? The manager came to our practice. We had it actually we were having a sound check. We were going to perform the next night at a club in Hamamatsu. So he shows up there after we were done. And so I tell him about this. And I tell him, at the time, I knew the guy's name and everything. I said his name. Yeah, I met this dude, da, 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 da. And I just want to see what his reaction is. And sure enough, he was like, kind of like, well, actually, no. First, he was cool. Oh, yeah, I know him. Yeah, how's he doing? Blah, 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 blah. So we did the small talk thing. And then I went in and told him, I was like, yeah, he has a book. And and he's kind of going on your family, going on your father. And, and he got really, really alarmed. He ended up cutting to me. He ended up leaving early because he wanted to go check out what was being said about his family. You know what I'm saying? Now, at the time, I didn't realize just how, the importance of reputation in Japan, Hyoban, like, reputation goes a long way. Like, advertisements on TV they do work and everything like that, but it's really only if you're being endorsed. If you're being endorsed by NHK, you're being endorsed by somebody who's reputable. Or that's why if you run a business, when Japanese tell each other by word of mouth, this restaurant is good, those people are almost certainly going to come. It's based on who is giving the endorsement. So likewise, when we were Afro-Asiatic, when we went to go see the mayor, it was a wrap. After that, every show we did, I couldn't go mine in my pocket. So was James. And again, that's not a lot in the hip hop industry, whatever. But for what we were doing at the time, we would have done this we would have done it for free. You know what I'm saying? But everywhere we went, we got treated like royalty. Once we had been endorsed by the ruling powers, or the dominant culture. Okay. But back to the story. I was watching, and I spoke to the manager a couple of times more about it and stuff like that. Because no, actually, he came and started asking me questions, and so I got me being who I am, I deduced that, and after that, I got other examples to substantiate this. But these J.S.P.E.X, they have delegated themselves, or they have been delegated. In the manager's case, his family had been doing this for generations now. And so it was his role in society to be a J.S.P.E.X. So that means, from the other side, looking at it from the Japanese perspective, is that he's like the expert. So if foreigners are doing something or whatever, Japanese people will go to these J.S.P.E.X to find out what's going on. Like, what are they doing? And you tell them without having, so they're a buffer class, kind of like a buffer between the foreigners and the Japanese. Okay. And these people, these J.S.P.E.X, many times, again, so in other words, if you're speaking to them in Japanese in front of other Japanese people, then what is their role? Their role starts becoming in question. And that's why they can't have it. They're looking at it as their bread and butter. Okay. So I came to understand that's how serious this was for him. Another example just came to my mind is I work at a testing center where I teach mostly writing and some reading classes, but it's writing for students who are trying to get into these prestigious universities. And there's a Japanese teacher there, and this guy, he's teaching English. They teach all different subjects though, but and this guy's English is on point. I think he studied at NYU or Columbia, maybe. It was in New York. I know he lived in New York City for like 6 years. And again, his English is on point, might even be better than mine. But this guy, before I worked there was a white dude that was there. And before I left, he was still there. And I guess they taught the same students, right? Different classes, but they corresponded with the same students. So when the white dude left, they put me in that role, right? And so now we have this like the upper tier class, whatever. But before the lesson would begin, he would always have this long drawn out conversation with the white dude, and I think I might even told this story before, but I think I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that's a good chance for the students to increase their listening comprehension, blah, 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 blah. Okay. But there's another side to it. Like the fact that this guy, he can't greet me in Japanese, like in this whole thing where, like, again, I'm just on call at all times to just suddenly start having this English conversation. I'm like, no, when I'm on break, I'm on break. You know what I'm saying? I'm on break, and I and it's not that I just refuse to do it, but I'm just like, no, I'm on break. You're trying to make me work when I'm on break. You know what I'm saying? And so for the most part, and everybody knows this, my get down pretty much is, I'm Japanese. So, I don't have the view of a foreigner, especially if you've lived here. If you were here as a child and with a Japanese family, you remember when they're like the gaijin and it was white people, you know what I'm saying? And nobody was looking at me, you know what I'm saying? And so now to come back as an adult and to be just automatically put into this pile, and I know what it really means, and we go in on that in 21st Century Japan Decoded too. It's never set well with me, just like getting called half-breed or something like that when I was in the States. Nah, that ain't me, man. I don't know what you're talking about. I ain't half of nothing. You know what I'm saying? Okay, enough said. But this guy, J.S.P.E.X dude, he would, oh man, this guy, he would he would come up and try to induce, or I should say coerce me into this conversation. And I would just start speaking Japanese to him. And he lost so much face. He would be like so horrified. And now this guy literally, he runs to avoid me. And this is an important point I wanted to bring too. Literally, I've seen, and sometimes I see like, we teach at the exact same time. in different classrooms on one particular day. And I went months without seeing the guy ever, not even seeing him visually. And then I found out one day I walked in my room and forgot something, came back out. He's walking in and going right into the classroom. Like, that is so off code. That's so off code for Japanese. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think they give him a pass because they understand the trauma he's going through. And so maybe I'm a little hard to get along with. I don't know. I will say this, that maybe not in this case, I don't really know where I could go, but in the past I have shut down some people and had them lose face over this, especially when I was younger. My tongue was I was quicker. I was a little quick to, I'm MC, I'm saying, hey, you got to come back with those, you got to come back with the punchline quick. And in each of those cases, I think I would stand my ground, even, knowing what I know now. However, I might have gone easier if I had known that so much was riding, that so much of their credibility was riding on this, even if it was only imagined by them. That said, the entire purpose for me making this, writing 21st Century Japan Decoded, or even making this video, is, again, for the importance of preserving mental health. And this also includes Japanese, because whenever you get out of touch of reality, that's an imbalance. And you can't sit here and tell me that this guy who went to New York, studied for 6 years, learned English, everyone treated him, they didn't treat him, oh, the Japanese guy, let's try to speak the 3 words of Japanese we know, and we can't speak English to him. Nobody knows. In almost any other country, any country I've been to, it's the complete opposite. Whereas, no, you come here, you better at least, go to Paris. Everybody talks about it, and try to speak English in a cafe or something. Hey, good morning. What's going on? Why don't you speak English? What's wrong with you? But when you come to Japan, it goes totally against the adage, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And many foreigners buy into this. And I'm not here to argue with you. If that works for you, I say, if you like it, I love it. That doesn't work for me. And I know it doesn't work for a lot of other people. Yeah, it's about preserving your mental health. You should be able to be who you are, if we are truly indeed in a free society. Okay. So, again, I'm not coming on here to make, have people become antisocial or go against the grain. In fact, in the book, we go in and talk about being able to stand in your square and go with the grain, because it's important. You can't go against the grain in Japan and hope to stay here for any substantial amount of time. You might wing it for a year or 2 years, and that's the point. And when I see people past that point, a lot of times, I start seeing these mental health issues, especially dealing with levels of self-esteem. And just so everybody knows, I was a mental health specialist in New Jersey for 7 years, the University Behavioral Health Care, which is a component of the University of Medicine Dentistry of New Jersey. And they have, at least at that time, they had the largest mental health facility in the US, if not the world. Okay, so I picked up a lot of good game there. All right, so I hope I covered it. This is what we're talking about, J.S.P.E.X. Again, they're not bad people. They're just people. They're suffering, they're trauma victims, just like a lot of people are. They're doing their best to get by, but that doesn't mean that, you have to be a victim, or you have to be victimized in order to play a role that they're assigning you. No, you should always stand on your square, no matter where you are, no matter who you are, and be yourself. And that's the only way you're going to be able to live in harmony with yourself. And of course, in Japan, it's all about harmony. Remember, if you don't respect yourself, if you don't exude self-respect, no one's going to respect you. No one's going to respect you. Remember, respect and like are not the same thing. You have to command respect, okay? Not demand respect. You have to command respect, and it starts with you. My name is Takuan Amaru. Please check out the book, Modern 21st Japan. One more time, I know I can get this right. 21st Century Japan Decoded. It's going to come out sometime this calendar year. I want to shout out all of the the Black and Japanese people who are contributing to the book. Shout out to my man Ryan, Shane, my man Nico, helping with these guys helping with the images, whether it be the computer graphics or providing photographs. I'm about to get another illustrator on board to depict the scene. So shout out to them. And yeah, please check us out. Takwanaamaru at Gmail, and please check out my man Sterling's Real Talk Forum. Oh, and for those of you, if you want to get on more on the bilingual tip, Sterling does a really good podcast with at least one Japanese woman I know. I don't know, and sometimes he has other people on there too, and they go in both languages. Okay, so if you want more of that, please check him out, and you can get at him at realtalk.jp. All right. See you on the side. Afro-Asiatic crossing mind, space, and time.